with Shannon Davis with Align Theta Center. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity to tell people what amazing things we're doing for brains.
Yeah, it's super interesting. I don't really know anything about it myself, so I would love to understand. Tell me a little bit about yourself and then explain to me kind of what brought you into this line of business.
I'd love to. So I live in Magnolia, just outside of Houston, and I have two amazing daughters. Laura is 17 and Andy is 19. And for the past several years, I have focused a lot of my time and energies on helping women in transition and in crisis through recovery groups and different areas that we inspire and empower women to take control of their lives and make good decisions for themselves and their families. So as I was working with a nonprofit, Inspiring Hope International, my partner April was talking to a man in another state on different ways that he had used to combat PTSD. We find that so many people in our communities are dealing with PTSD, and yet all the resources tend to be for veterans. There aren't the resources for your regular everyday person who's dealing with trauma. So doing work with Inspiring Hope International and talking to this man, he told her, I've tried this, I've tried that, I've tried several things, but the game changer was a theta chamber. And she called me and she says, I don't know what this theta chamber thing is, but I think we got to get one.
Okay.
So I said, well, let's get one. So that brought us on this journey of doing our due diligence and researching and finding out about this technology. And during COVID, we did everything we could to get one in our community because we wanted those resources available to people around us right away.
So is it do you have a facility that you provide this machine that people can sit in, or is it at the nonprofit organization? What?
So we started a business, and we are just on the outskirts of the Woodlands, and it's Align Theta Center. We have 2 theta pods. We call ours a theta pod because a theta chamber sounds like some kind of torture device.
It does kind of.
It's already kind of unusual technology for people. So we have 2 theta pods in our center, and we partner with lots of different nonprofits and have direct customers and clients, and the gamut of things that we can help with the brain is just amazing. We started focusing, of course, on PTSD because that's where our heart was and helped people with PTSD. We see people all the time, every day, who have a variety of issues such as anxiety, depression, migraines, insomnia, OCD and ADD, and really anything that affects your life and affects your brain, the theta pod can help with.
It's so interesting. So what is it exactly?
Yeah,
What's the technology and what does it do?
So the people watching your show have never heard, I'm guaranteed, they've never heard of this technology. They've never seen one. A theta pod looks like kind of a space-age tanning bed.
Okay.
You lay in it. It's a very relaxing experience. You lay in it. We put different modalities on you. We'll put clips on your ears. We'll put earphones on you that deliver binaural tones and just music you can listen to. And we have eye goggles on. And then the vestibular motion, it spins while you're in it. The vestibular motion does amazing things for the brain.
Is it spinning fast or is it spinning slow?
It spins at 13 RPM, which is pretty fast.
Yeah.
But the cool thing is you don't know you're spinning.
Oh.
So we don't feel the earth spinning, right?
No.
Because it's a constant velocity. So when it first starts up, like that first half turn, you can kind of feel it spinning, and then as soon as it gets to its steady rate, you can't feel it.
Okay.
And people, we argue with people all the time because they tell us it was not spinning when I was in it. Yeah, and it was, you just can't feel it. You may feel a floating sensation or you just don't notice anything at all.
Okay. So, is it similar? I've sat in a float chamber before.
I'm often asked by people if it's a sensory deprivation tank, like a float chamber. I call it a kind of sensory overload tank because your senses are very busy doing different things. You've got lights in your eye, in your closed eyes. You've got the goggles on with the tones and the music. So we're not depriving your senses, but it is also a very relaxing experience. So the main thing that is happening in the theta pod is that it's helping your brain go into theta state. And that's scary for people sometimes when we tell them it's doing something to your brain in theta state because they don't understand what that is. I get people say, ooh, that's magical, or it's something like a contrived state that we're forcing the brain into. So I'd like to explain what theta is before I explain the other modalities, because that's kind of an important thing we do. Theta state is a natural state your brain is in several times throughout any 24-hour period where you're in very low brain waves. So your brain cycles in brain waves that are measured in hertz. It's a measured frequency. It cycles per second. And when you're in theta state, your brain is in 4 to 8 hertz. As compared to, like, if you were in gamma, if you're processing right now, if you're doing something, a complicated task, or you're really thinking, your brain's going to be in 35 to 100 hertz. So you can see the difference right there. If I would measure your brain waves and you are doing a complicated task, it's going to look like this, right? But if we're in theta, it's doing this, 4 to 8 hertz. So when your brain stops doing all that processing and relaxes, then we can really access the subconscious. It can be more to the surface than when it's really busy doing other things. So in theta, really cool things happen with the brain. When you are just falling asleep at night, like that 2 to 3 minutes right before you fall asleep, and it just feels so delicious and you're so relaxed, you're in theta. If you're driving somewhere that you go to often and you get there and you suddenly, I don't remember driving to work today, your brain was in theta. Or if you're in the shower and you get the best ideas ever in the shower, it's because your brain was in theta and you're relaxed and you get really good ideas. So the brain is an open sponge. It absorbs information, incredible rates during theta state. Also, you can retain information up to 3%. 300% more retention of information when you're in theta state. So very effective time period to be doing therapies on the brain. So the theta pod helps your brain go into theta and relax, and then it does very mainstream effective therapies on the brain. We use binaural tones, which balance the activity in the brain and the brain chemistry. We use the light therapy goggles, and the goggles flash light into your closed eyes, and we use CES clips on your ears that send signals into your brain. So when you go to someone and they do the binaural tones or EMDR or any of these other therapies that we use for the brain, in the theta pod, we're doing that type of therapy on the brain, but while it's in theta state. So it's kind of like having therapy on steroids.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. How often, I mean, I guess obviously it depends on what you're coming in for, you know? I mean, do just someone off the street just come in? What if I come in and say I have no problems or anything, but I'm thinking I want to try this, you know, and see what it'll do for me, you know?
You are going to want to try it. So we have clients who come in just to spur their creativity, right? And just for the relaxing experience. We have a client who writes music, writes songs and children's books, and she comes in just for her creativity and spend the time in theta state. Einstein and Edison both did experiments to put their brains in theta state, and that's when they got their ideas. Oh, wow. So it's very beneficial for you.
So it's been around for a long time, just people don't necessarily...
Right.
Or they've advanced, obviously, the technology, like
right.
in different Edison, ways. You know, had a theta pod.
Wouldn't it be great if Edison had a theta pod? Imagine the inventions we'd have today if Edison had a theta pod. So we do have people come in who don't have severe issues, right, to use the theta chamber. We also have people who come in for short-term issues. So if you've just are overstressed this week and you want to relax, or if you have insomnia, we can kick insomnia out really quickly in just a few sessions because we're balancing the chemistry of the brain, we're relaxing the brain, and there are all different ways insomnia presents itself, and we can talk about that too if you want to, but that's something that we can take care of short term. When we see someone who really needs long-term help with the brain, and one of the things we can do with the theta pod is we can build healthy new neural pathways. It takes 21 to 28 days to go through that process, and that's just how our brains work.
Would you be doing that every day? You'd be coming every day, but it would be kind of like more of intensive.
Every day for 21 to 28 days, and that's someone with a serious addiction issue or with a serious PTSD issue or something where we really need to build those new neural pathways in the brain. I know your mother and grandmother probably always told you to do something for 30 days if you want to develop a habit, and that's because of that. It takes that long to build the neural pathways in your brain. Okay. So that's why we do see, it's a variety. So my partner, April, is a life coach, and she sits down with people when they come in for the first time, and what are your needs? What do you want to do? What do you want to accomplish? And then they set together a plan. Another really cool thing about the Theta Pod technology is that we can address 3 different things in one session. So in a 30-minute session, it takes 3 minutes to put your brain in theta state, then it runs 3 8-minute programs, then 3 minutes relaxing and getting your brain out of theta state. So we can do memory, insomnia, and reduce stress at the same time. Or we can do...
So you say insomnia could possibly take, 2 to 3 sessions and you've cured their insomnia? Not cured, but...
we can't use the word cure because it's an alternative thing to what you use, but you can sleep great. Usually after the second or third session, people are sleeping so much better. We put them in five consecutive days for insomnia, and then 2 days off, and then if we have an extreme case, then they'll may do another 5 days.
Okay.
So sometimes when we have insomnia, we can't get to sleep at night because we have racing thoughts. And the brain is up in gamma, right? 35 to 100 hertz, and there's no way it's going to segue into sleep from there. Sometimes when we have insomnia, we get to sleep fine, but then we wake up at 3 a.m. and we can't get back to sleep. That's probably more of a hormonal thing going on or other things happening. And then we've had one client who was doing chemotherapy, and the drug she was taking was keeping her from sleeping. And she was up like 48 hours at a time without being able to sleep. So we put her in the Theta Pod every day or every other day, depending on her schedule, while she was taking chemotherapy, and she was finally able to sleep even while she was still taking the drugs that were keeping her from sleeping. So really very effective for insomnia.
Oh, that's awesome. And I mean, I have a friend that's recently, going through chemo right now and things like that. And I wonder if that's when she goes to the Woodlands to get her therapy. So I wonder if maybe I
have her whip by and have a session.
Have a session while she's doing her chemo and stuff. It's so interesting how, I mean, people, I think now more than ever, we're more conscious of our stresses and our anxieties that we've had. COVID has put a new level of social anxieties and just anxieties for work or people's jobs, changing or being let go from jobs or transitioning your business or the way that you do business. I mean, there's so many things happening in the past 2 years that have never happened in our lifetime, obviously, or any lifetime really, where the whole world has shut down like it has. And it has really affected, I'm sure, so many people in so many different ways. And I think if you can really get yourself whole with settling your mind and body and getting everything, it can definitely change your day-to-day, your outlook on life, your outlook on finding a new job or a new career, helping you focus on maybe things that you're passionate about or all those things.
Don't you some days feel like our entire culture's in crisis? That everybody around us feels like they're in crisis of some time? And it's dangerous to open a business in COVID. Like, what are we doing? You're opening a business in COVID? We had to. We had to get this technology, once we found out what it could do for people, into our community as quickly as we could. We also have a mechanism in our office, it's called a simmer machine. And that's a whole separate topic, but it sterilizes the air in every surface so that we could have our clients be comfortable that they're safe when they're in our facility.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's cool.
Tell me maybe a unique story or something really exciting that you've accomplished with the Theta machine, recently.
So we've had several PTSD clients who started off to the point to where they could barely function. And we're talking, when somebody's got extreme PTSD, it's hard to get out of bed. It's hard to function at all. And in 30 days, they're planning, I'm moving here, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. It's like watching somebody blossom, and you can't not get really choked up when you see that happen with someone. We have a young lady who was in a car accident, and a good friend was in the car with her and was killed, and she's been dealing with PTSD from that. So to help this person to segue out of that experience and to have confidence life and be able to go in her life again, a cool thing that we're seeing is that when we treat someone with PTSD, we don't just smooth out the reaction to the memories. That's really important because your amygdala in your brain attaches meaning to current situations and experiences to past ones, and that's why you had that same physiological or emotional reaction to something that could have happened 20 years ago. When you hear the tires screeching again, or an experience that your brain relates to what happened. PTSD treatment smooths out that connection so that, that happened, but you don't react to it anymore. But what we're finding is that a brain that is calm and balanced and fortified also don't react to current things that are happening. So if you have something that would have, because you've been on high alert and kind of raw with your PTSD, if something happens now that would really traumatize you, it doesn't, because you're good now, and it's just life-changing. So
I think a lot of people, misconception is like that PTSD, they just relate it to military. I mean, automatically it goes PTSD, but people have so many different forms of PTSD. I know I work with someone who, have worked in past with her, like people, every time she hears an ambulance or something, or a fire truck or something like that, it brings back from experiences that she's had in her life, and she kind of goes numb, she says, like, and it just kind of makes her, so I'm like thinking of, just like with Marilee, so the key is CBD, it's like how many people this can help just in your day-to-day life that that might have some traumatic experiences that you might just at least try. You don't know what it can do because you've been in therapy for 10 or 15 years and it really hasn't done much. You've tried different therapists, you've tried different things. So what does it hurt to try something on a different level to see if maybe we can get deeper into it than just your conscious self of talking through the problem, but actually go into a deeper, almost meditative state and kind of reprogramming those thoughts.
Exactly. Yes. And I had a veteran who called the Theta Pod therapy without words, and he was on disability for PTSD with the military, and he was required to go to talk therapy weekly. And he was saying that talk therapy was just re-traumatizing him because he had to talk about it and bring it up again, and he would just be a mess for a few days. When he started calming down again, then he had to go back and talk about it again, and he just stayed in that cycle. So he was so grateful to get out of that cycle. We also have a client here recently who was very ill with COVID himself and then lost a son right after, and is dealing with the death of his son. Very, very traumatic, very, very traumatic for him. And we can't bring his son back. We can help him get his life back and to see his journey coming back to sleeping again, to laughing, to being able to function and work again has been very fulfilling.
That's amazing. Yeah. Well, I think that, this has been very informative. And, I think everyone should maybe, if you know anybody or can think of anyone or yourself, definitely do some research and give Shannon a call or, call the office and get an appointment. Really appreciate you coming on today and sharing this information with us.
Thanks. It's been wonderful to talk with you today.
All right. We'll be right back.